This is James Lupton for Slothbox, sponsored by the Excelsior Sporting Club. And today I'm joined with the Iceman, John Scully. John, how are you, sir?
Everything's good. How you doing?
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you. Thanks for joining me today. You are, of course, part of Team Beterbiev. And there's been an injury recently announced in the last 48 hours. So the Callum Smith fight has been postponed. Just give me a little update on Arthur's situation.
Basically, as far as I know, it was something to do with his tooth, and I guess it got infected, and whatever that entails. And so he had to get it taken care of. And it's funny, like he's the type of guy I didn't know anything about it. He was sparring and he didn't say anything, and he mentioned it one day. But it's like I'll be like, if it was me, I'd be like, oh man, my tooth is killing me, and you'd know what it was. But he just mentioned it in passing, and I didn't think anything of it. And next thing I know, the fight is canceled because I guess it was really bad.
I mean, how had camp been up until that point?
Like I say, I thought it was fine because he didn't show any indication that, this was going to happen. But I guess they took X-rays and the doctor said this is stupid. Like there's no way you could fight with this.
Do you know a time frame on this? How long could it keep him out for? How long could this be postponed for?
I honestly don't know because he just had surgery like 2 days ago. So I really don't know. I don't know anything about this type of injury, how long it would take. But if I know Artur, he's going to stay in shape anyway. Like he'll be out running probably tomorrow and doing what he does. So I don't think he's going to have as much downtime as maybe some other people might.
Now, we know the fight will still happen. It's just obviously when the new date is, we don't know. But in terms of this fight, obviously Callum Smith, he's a Brit. He's coming over to Canada. Just talk to me a little bit about his pros and cons. What does he possess for Arthur?
He's got good height. He's got a defensive type of style. He's got the range. He obviously has a good right hand, and stylistically, he's probably an issue for anybody. But obviously, he would say the same about Artur. Artur presents some issues as well.
Absolutely. I mean, Arthur's record is insane. 100% knockout ratio. The man is a beast. And the last time we spoke about his age and how you said his age really isn't something that's affecting him as such, because he's not really got that many miles on the clock, and doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon.
Right. Well, I think him and Bernard Hopkins are poster children for living cleanly. Like Artur is a Muslim. Arthur's what I call a real Muslim, right? Bernard lives like a real Muslim. I don't know if he is, but he lives like one. No fried foods, no partying, none of that. He doesn't abuse his body, and you can see how long Artur. Artur. People are at Artur's age. He's 38. And people are making a big issue of it. But Bernard Hopkins was world champion at 48, 49. So Arthur's still in that realm where he could keep going if he wanted to, because he doesn't abuse his body, doesn't abuse his mind. He never think about it. Like if boxing is psychological, if life is psychological, guys like this never, ever, ever have to experience any doubt whatsoever about themselves physically, because like a fighter will say to himself, he'll train hard, but he'll go, man, I've been eating junk food, and that sugar is probably affecting me, and it's affecting my muscles, the fat I eat. These guys don't have to say that because they eat perfectly. They don't get out of shape. So there's something to be said for that. So the average guy, 38, I'd say, okay, we're rounding third and we're heading home. Artur, I don't say that. I mean, his last few fights, like I'll give you an example how people are. It's kind of funny, but like he had a tough fight early on with Anthony Yard, right? And then he broke him down and overcame him. And people, instead of saying, wow, he broke down and walked through a world-class contender and broke him down and stopped him late, But instead of that, they go, oh, he's slipping, he got hit. And I'm like, you're fighting a world-class fighter. Who doesn't get hit? Other than Floyd Mayweather and Roy Jones, who doesn't get hit? I mean, it's so crazy to me. Like when Ali fought Foreman, people today would be going, oh, he's washed up. He couldn't get off the ropes. He's lucky Foreman got tired. That's what they would say. Meanwhile, Muhammad defended the title like 10 more times, after that. So I think Artur, ask people who fight him and ask people who box with him in the gym. Ask them if they think he's slowing down. And I'll bet you they say no.
You'll know yourself as a former fighter, you still train, but the older you get, it's harder each camp and it's harder to make weight sometimes. Things like that. Do you see any of that in Arthur at all? Or does he make the weight comfortable? Is he, like I say, he lives clean, he lives the life. Is it still as easy for him now as it was, say, 5 years ago?
I think it is. And I'll tell you, like, again, because of his mindset, like, people have to realize, and especially like in his part of the world where he comes from, where he was groomed and educated and raised, they think different. People in the Western world, we think different, and that's why it's special when a guy like Bernard Hopkins does this. It's like, man, this guy, he's special. He's a special guy. Floyd Mayweather's a special guy. Arthur's just one of a million guys that think like he does where he lives. Khabib, is from over there. It's no coincidence. It's the mentality they grew up with. And like I say, I credit his religion. I credit his belief in his religion and his mentality, his regimented life. He's like a born fighter who lives the life 100%. He's the only guy I know. He's the only guy I've ever known at that level that could have training camp in his house. He lives in his house with his family. Every other fighter I know at that level has to go away to training camp for 6 weeks in Las Vegas, in Florida, in New York, wherever we go, so they can focus and get away from it. Artur gets away from it in his own house. I mean, that's his mentality. Who could do that? Can Callum Smith do that? Probably not. I doubt it. Not successfully.
No, absolutely. Like I say, it says a lot about his mindset and his mental fortitude there for sure.
Yeah.
I want to mention, without obviously overlooking Callum Smith, there's another big fight that always gets talked about. And at the moment, the big fights are being made, undisputed fights are being made. Arthur versus Dimitri Bivol is a fight that everybody wants to see for this division. And it seems to be, for one reason or another, not happening. It seems to be a lot weighing down on the WBC side of things. They're not allowing Bivol to fight for the WBC title because of his Russian side of things. However, obviously, Arthur is also from that neck of the woods, but because he's obviously got his citizenship in Canada, he's allowed to fight for it. Do you feel that's unfair for the sport and for both men to not be able to fight because of these things that are going on that aren't something personal?
Absolutely. I love the WBC, but they're overstepping their boundaries. They're getting into the political, and you can't do that, because if you're going to do that, you have to go the whole way. You have to go the whole mile. Now, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know, but I've never heard of them banning Chinese fighters from fighting for their titles. But in China, they torture and imprison Muslims. They got them in concentration camps. How come you don't ban all them from fighting? How come the whole country of China is not allowed to box for the title? I've never heard of that, So what are we really doing here? Like, what's the point of this? Why are they doing this? I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Of course, you can't speak for Arthur, but for yourself as part of their team, would you like to see Arthur face Bivol for all the belts?
Oh, for sure. And listen, Arthur, as I've said many times, he's not a boxing fan. Like, he doesn't watch boxing. He doesn't know fighters. He wouldn't know Nonito Donaire. He wouldn't have a clue who Nonito Donaire was if Nonito Donaire walked up to him. Tank Davis. If Tank Davis walked up to Arthur and said hello, Arthur would have no idea who the guy was. And no offense to them. I'm just saying he doesn't follow it. But he knows Bivol because they were amateur together at the same time, and he's obviously the champion, and the other champion. And Arthur's always said he wants to have the 4 belts, and that doesn't have anything to do with Bivol. It has to do with whoever has the 4th bolt. If Mickey Mouse beats Bivol, then Arthur wants to kill Mickey Mouse, and that's just the way it is.
No, absolutely. I mentioned going into that, obviously, the big fights are being made now. We've seen, for example, Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, but more recently, this weekend just gone, well, the last week actually, we saw Inoue and Fulton face each other, and then we saw Spence and Crawford face off against each other. Let's start with Spence and Crawford. It was an unbelievable fight, and going into the fight, it was a real 50-50 on paper, but it didn't unfold that way during the fight. What were your thoughts on that?
I'll say this. When Errol Spence was walking into the arena, they showed him on the big screen walking into the arena. And I was watching it with a bunch of fighters, a bunch of Arthur sparring partners. And I said to everybody, I said, something's wrong with this guy. Look at it. Look at it. Like, what do you mean? I go, look at his face. Like, look at him. Look at his facial expression. Look at his demeanor. Something's up. I actually thought, it occurred to me, he might be drunk or high. That's what I thought when he walked in. When he walked in to the ring, towards the ring, on the way, I said, this guy might get killed. Like, something's wrong with him. I mean, how can you not see that? I'm no genius. I'm no doctor, but I can see clearly that something's wrong with this guy. He's not right. I'm amazed he made it as far as he did in the fight, to be honest with you. And you see, he went down and look, Crawford's a great fighter and he punches hard, but the first good shot he got caught with, he went down, and it was all downhill from there. I think, again, I'm no doctor. I hope this is not the case, but I think, strictly based on what I saw, I think he should retire. I think there's no future for him at the highest levels, especially against punchers in this game. I think he should get out because something is wrong, whether it's the car accident or something else. Something obviously is wrong.
In terms of the car accident there, a lot of people on social media said, since the car accident has not been the same. It has been 4 years since that car accident. Is it only now because of the levels in the sport that we've recognised actually maybe it's not quite there no more for Spence, and maybe Errol isn't the fighter he was prior to his car crash?
Well, the fact is he hasn't fought. I mean, how many times has he fought since the accident? I think, was this the 2 fights, I think?
2 or 3, yeah. I thought
so you've seen him really until the other night. So everything combined, you get, out of the ring activity, that whatever you're doing, and you get the the lack of boxing, and I mean, this is not a game to be inactive. We're in the worst era ever in terms of inactivity. The best fighters in the world, if they fought 3 times in a year, it would be a miracle. Yet Muhammad Ali, when he was 36 years old, was defending the world heavyweight title 4 times in a year. That's the biggest star ever and making the most money, and he's defending the title 4 times. And now these guys grace us with their presence maybe twice a year. I mean, I hate boxing the way it is. I'm not a fan of this era of boxing. When look at James Toney. I mean, James Toney, even in between his biggest fights, he was fighting competitive tune-up fights, like his 10-round non-title fights. Guys like Ricky Thomas, he was fighting good guys, solid guys, and on TV, and just to keep busy, because James understood activity keeps you sharp. And these guys today, they're as good as they're going to get because they don't want to keep sharp. They want to make multi-millions, or they don't want to fight. And a guy like James Toney understood the importance of keeping busy. These guys don't care about keeping busy. They want to have 25, 30 pro fights and be done with it.
Has financial greed ruined the sport?
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. Like, think about it. Look at James Toney's record. Look how many times he fought, how active he was. This guy had like 70-something pro fights. He was busy between big fights. He was busy with solid 10-round keep busy fights. Back in the day, a keep busy fight, everybody did it. Joe Louis did it. Ezra Charles did it. Sugar Ray Robinson did it 100 times. I mean, he had 100 of Ray Robinson's fights were fights for him to keep busy. When's the last time you've ever heard a professional fighter say, I need to take a keep busy fight? You haven't. You haven't heard it. It doesn't happen. That's not right. That's not good for boxing. That's why we don't have as many good fighters as we used to. And people say, oh, you just think your era was better because it was your era. And I say, yeah, it was better. Of course it was better. There was 100 better fighters back then than there are now. That's just, you don't have to take my word for it. Open your eyes, look around. I mean, think about this. Right now, today, back in 1987, say 86, 5, whatever. If you said to me back then, name me 10 top middleweights, right, in the world, name 10. And I go, okay, Marvin Hagler, Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, James Schuler, James Kinchin, Don Lee, John Collins, Robbie Sims, Sumbu Kalimbe, Mike McCallum, Harold Graham, Michael Watson, Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, on and on and on. I promise you, if you ask me right now today, name me 10 top contenders at 160. I have no idea. I can't even tell you. You know why? Because I don't see these guys. Why? Because they don't keep busy. Because they're not on TV. They're not keeping busy. I'm not reading about them. I don't hear anything about them because they just want to have 20 fights and go for the world title. They don't want to keep busy and learn and educate themselves on the nuances of professional boxing. It's a different era. And like I say, people will laugh. They go, oh, you think your era is better? Yeah, it was better. Of course it was better. I mean, there's no question it was better.
Absolutely agree. We mentioned, the best fighters at the time, and just bringing back around to the Terence Crawford and Spence. With Crawford, how far can he go? Can he move up to 154? Can he take on the Charlo? There's a bit of back and forth between Charlo and Crawford during the Spence fight. Is this a fight that you would like to see, or a Tim Zil or somebody like that?
I mean, to be honest, I'm different. It's amazing to me that now, like every time a guy, like, say he wins the title at 154. Back in the day, it used to be, oh, well, he won the 154. Well, now he's going to have to fight Tommy Hearns or Roberto Duran or Ayub Kalule, Davey Moore. What's he going to do? Now they're like, well, yeah, but maybe he should move up to 165, 68. Marvin Hagler stayed at 160 his whole career. Now all of a sudden, guys are like, back in the day, moving up was a big deal. When Sugar Ray Leonard went to 160, it was a huge deal. When Alexis Arguello went to 140, it was a huge deal. Duran went to 154. People couldn't believe it. Now these guys move up every fight like it's nothing. Some guys go, who is it? Canelo. He's up, he's down. How can guys do that? They could never do that before. Something's up. So I'm not accusing anybody, but something is up. Something is up with the way people are bouncing around weight classes and they're maintaining their strength and their speed and their power. It's like they didn't lose an iota of any of it. And back in the day, they had to focus. And, and some guys didn't do it. And Hagler didn't do it. Hagler didn't move to 168 because he knew he was too small. They talked about him moving up to fight Michael Spence. He was too small, and he knew that. He wasn't stupid. Why would I fight Michael Spence? It makes no sense. But now the guys, they're moving up, and then they move back down. They're 32 years old, and all of a sudden they've mastered gaining and losing weight. Something's not right. I want to know who works for them. I want to know who's got the secret stuff in the back room. I want to find out who that is.
Could that be a part of ill discipline? Could it be a case of people potentially thinking, oh, it's too hard to continue making that weight the older they get, and they decide, oh, actually, I can still make money by not having to push myself as hard in training?
Well, like I say, I mean, Hagler did it because Hagler showed the discipline required. He lived it just like Bernard Hopkins. I think Bernard moved up. Obviously, Bernard moved up to 175. He skipped 168 because the big fight was at 75, and he had the height to do it. these other guys are 5'8", 5'9". That's a little different scenario. Hopkins was lean at 160, so he had room to bulk on some weight. So I don't know these guys' individual physiological makeups, but like I said, I just think it's a little odd that everybody all of a sudden is up and down like a yo-yo, and they do it easily. Whereas back in the day, you had to take 6 months to try and prepare to do this, and now they're doing it like it's nothing. So I want to know how. I want to know how these guys are doing this.
Absolutely. And just finally, John, roll back around again to Artur Beterbiev. In terms of when he does come back from this injury and this surgery, and when he's all back in sort of full fitness mode and goes into camp, where will you be starting off? Obviously, we're only really, 3-4 weeks away from what was originally fight date now. Will you be restarting camp again? How does this process work?
Well, depending on when it is, but the beautiful thing about Artur, just like with Hopkins and Mayweather, guys like that, most camps, literally, the first half of the camp at least consists of just trying to get the guy in some kind of shape and let him lose a whole bunch of weight early on. That's the goal of the first half of the camp. With guys like Artur, you don't have to worry about that. He comes into camp, and on the first day, he looks great. He looks in shape because he doesn't allow himself to get out of shape. So that's one beautiful thing. And that's why at his age, he's able to excel, because it's not just that he trains hard, but that he's dedicated and motivated between fights. So he's a poster child for that lifestyle.
Fantastic. Well, John, I want to thank you very much for your time today. As always, a pleasure speaking to yourself.
I appreciate you having me always. Thank you.
Thank you.